Welcome to Space Mysteries, your trusted source for breaking headlines, global insights, and sharp analysis from around the world. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Before we dive into today's breaking news, let's take a moment to understand the tool at the heart of the story: the tariff. Tariffs are a key part of international trade, and they can have a huge impact on economies, businesses, and even the prices we pay at the store. But what exactly is a tariff, and why does it matter so much? Simply put, a tariff is a tax that a government places on goods brought in from another country. When products cross a border, the importing country can decide to charge an extra fee, making those goods more expensive than they would be otherwise. This fee is paid by the importer, but its effects ripple throughout the economy. For example, imagine a shipment of copper arriving from Canada to the United States. As soon as it enters the country, the US government can slap on a tariff, raising the cost of that copper. This means American companies that rely on copper, like manufacturers of electronics, cars, or construction materials, now have to pay more for a crucial resource. The main idea behind tariffs is to encourage people and businesses to buy goods made within their own country. By making imported products more expensive, tariffs give an advantage to domestic producers, helping them compete and potentially grow their businesses. Tariffs are often used as a way to protect local industries and safeguard jobs. Sometimes they're also used as a bargaining chip in international negotiations, pressuring other countries to change their trade practices or policies. However, tariffs can have unintended consequences. The country targeted by tariffs might respond with their own taxes on imports, leading to a back-and-forth escalation known as a trade war. This can strain relationships between countries and disrupt global supply chains. When tariffs drive up the cost of imported materials, manufacturers often have no choice but to pass those costs along. This means higher prices for businesses and eventually for everyday consumers. As a result, Americans may find themselves paying more for everything from smartphones and appliances to cars and new homes. The impact of tariffs can be felt in nearly every aisle of the store and every corner of the economy. International trade is a delicate balancing act. A single decision, like imposing a new tariff, can set off a chain reaction, affecting not just two countries, but markets and industries all around the world. While tariffs might help shield one industry from foreign competition, they can also make it harder for other industries to get the supplies they need, leading to shortages, layoffs, or even factory closures. Right now, this is exactly what's unfolding between the US and Canada, with copper at the center of a growing economic conflict. As both countries take their positions, the effects are being felt by businesses, workers, and consumers on both sides of the border. Last week, President Trump announced a 25% tariff on all raw and semi-processed copper imports. He called it a move to protect national security and revive American copper mining. The goal: make US copper more competitive and create mining jobs. But the biggest impact? Hitting Canada, America's top copper supplier. For decades, US factories have relied on a steady flow of Canadian copper for everything from wiring to electric vehicles. Now, the tariff threatens to disrupt this vital supply chain, putting the US at odds with its closest trading partner. The policy aimed to help miners, but it's about to create much bigger problems for American manufacturers. Canada's response to the new US copper tariff was both swift and dramatic, sending shockwaves through the international trade community and making headlines across the globe. The Canadian government wasted no time in formulating a decisive plan of action, determined to protect its economic interests and assert its position on the world stage. Within just 2 days of the US announcement, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stood before the nation and the world, strongly condemning the American tariff. He called it a clear violation of long-standing trade agreements and emphasized that Canada would not stand idly by while its industries were threatened. But rather than respond with retaliatory tariffs, which might have escalated the conflict further, Canada took an even bolder and more unexpected step. It halted all exports of raw and semi-processed copper to the United States, cutting off a vital supply line overnight. The message from Ottawa was unmistakable. If there would be no fair trade, then there would be no copper flowing south. Canada was willing to endure short-term pain to defend its principles and send a powerful signal. This unprecedented move instantly triggered a supply crisis for U.S. industries that rely heavily on Canadian copper for everything from electronics to construction. Factories began to slow production, and supply managers scrambled to find alternative sources. The action also served as a stark reminder to Washington that trade is a two-way street, and that both nations are deeply interconnected through their economic ties. For the first time in decades, copper shipments came to a complete standstill at the border. The sight of idle trains and trucks loaded with copper, unable to cross, underscored the seriousness of the standoff. Trucks were turned away, drivers waited anxiously at checkpoints, and border crossings that once bustled with trade activity now displayed closed signs, symbolizing the abrupt halt in commerce. What began as a simple tariff dispute had now escalated into a full-blown supply chain emergency, leaving U.S. industry leaders scrambling for solutions and highlighting just how fragile cross-border trade relationships can be. The fallout was immediate and severe. U.S. manufacturers and construction firms, used to just-in-time deliveries, suddenly found themselves without copper. Factories making wiring, plumbing, and electronics couldn't get the raw material they needed. The green energy sector, electric vehicles, wind turbines, solar panels, was hit especially hard. Construction projects stalled nationwide as copper supplies vanished. Inventories ran out, work stopped, and costs soared. Copper prices on U.S. markets spiked over 30% in a single day. Manufacturing stocks plunged, while domestic mining stocks soared. The intended stability for miners had unleashed chaos across the broader economy. The copper crisis exposed just how fragile and interconnected modern supply chains really are. Behind the numbers are real people. In Ohio, hundreds of factory workers were sent home. No copper, no work. Similar layoffs hit Michigan auto plants and Pennsylvania plumbing suppliers. Families lost paychecks overnight, not from lack of demand, but from a geopolitical standoff. Construction trades, electricians, plumbers, pipe fitters faced sudden work stoppages. Projects halted, paychecks disappeared, and uncertainty spread. Even the promise of new mining jobs offered little hope. Reopening mines takes years, not weeks. For now, the losses are immediate and widespread. The policy meant to protect jobs has left many more workers idle. The human cost of this trade war is mounting by the day. Industry groups quickly sounded the alarm. The National Association of Manufacturers warned that for every mining job, 40 more depend on copper in manufacturing. Tech and auto CEOs said the tariff would delay electric vehicles and raise prices. Construction leaders predicted billions in project delays, including critical infrastructure. Even some in the metals industry worried about market chaos and investment uncertainty. The consensus: the tariff was a blunt tool that ignored the complexity of modern supply chains. Business leaders called for an immediate reversal and restoration of stable trade with Canada. The message was clear: this policy was hurting far more than it helped. The crisis sparked fierce debate in Washington. Democrats called the tariff reckless and demanded hearings. Some Republicans from mining states praised the move as tough and necessary. But many GOP lawmakers from manufacturing states broke ranks, warning of job losses and economic damage. The party was split between protectionists and free traders. The White House seemed caught off guard by the backlash and Canada's swift response. Political paralysis set in, with no clear path forward. What started as an economic policy had become a test of leadership and party unity. The copper crisis is about to hit American wallets. Higher copper prices mean more expensive homes, renovations, and repairs. The National Association of Home Builders estimates thousands could be added to the price of a new home. Electronics, phones, laptops, appliances will also get pricier as manufacturers pass on costs. For families already struggling with inflation, this is another blow. The tariff acts as a hidden tax, shrinking purchasing power. A decision in Washington now means higher bills for everyone, everywhere. The consumer squeeze is the final, painful consequence of this trade war. The US and Canada now find themselves at a pivotal crossroads, one that could define the future of their economic relationship for years to come. The decisions made in the next few weeks will ripple far beyond government offices, impacting businesses, workers, and families on both sides of the border. One possible path forward is cooperation. The White House could choose to rescind the controversial tariff, opening the door for Canada to lift its export ban. This move would restore the vital flow of copper between the two nations, allowing manufacturers to breathe a sigh of relief and helping stabilize prices for countless products that rely on this essential metal. Trade could resume its normal pace, and the economic partnership that has benefited both countries for decades could be preserved. But there's another, riskier option: escalation. If tensions rise, we could see more tariffs imposed, sparking a full-blown trade war. This would mean higher costs for businesses, job losses, and deeper economic pain for both countries. The effects would be felt not just in boardrooms, but in everyday life, as prices climb and uncertainty grows. Or the standoff could drag on, leading to a prolonged stalemate. In this scenario, manufacturers would be forced to scramble for pricier copper from distant suppliers, driving up costs and causing lasting damage to North American supply chains. The ripple effects could reach small towns and big cities alike, with some businesses struggling to survive. The lesson here is clear. Trade policy isn't just a matter for politicians or economists. It touches the lives of ordinary people everywhere. Jobs, prices, and entire communities are shaped by these decisions, often in ways that aren't immediately visible. A single tariff has unleashed a cascade of consequences, exposing just how deeply interdependent the US and Canada truly are. What happens in one country can quickly affect the other, for better or worse. The choices made in the coming days and weeks will shape not only the future of both economies, but also the daily lives of millions of people. The stakes are high, and the world is watching closely to see what happens next. Millions of livelihoods hang in the balance. For workers, business owners, and families, the outcome of this dispute will determine whether they face new opportunities or new hardships. The next move is critical. It will decide whether this crisis ends in recovery and renewed partnership, or in lasting damage that could take years to repair. The choice is in their hands.